Good evening and welcome to Devil's Advocate. This is the preview show for Liverpool versus Manchester United on Sunday. This is the weekly armchair sports talk. I am your host this evening, Reece. I am joined by former Manchester United Youth Academy player Phil Marsh. Hero in my eyes, by the way. That's all I'm saying. And beneath me as well, he is a Liverpool fan. I know, guys, get in the comments, boo him. You've got my permission. It's Gary. Good evening to you both, gentlemen. How are you?
Hey, Reece. Good, man.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Reece. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you for both coming on this evening. I really do appreciate it. Obviously, we're just gonna get straight in because there's no better way of doing it. You get fired in, have a blast, and we talk about football clubs. There's nothing more special than that. And we're going to start off, obviously, with Phil. Obviously, coming to yourself. United, obviously, very important win in midweek. We've went from the possibility of going fourth in our Champions League group to now sitting top with a very important win. How did you feel watching the contrast both in the first half and the second half of United's performance in midweek? What stood out for you in terms of United going forward? Is there anything that we can build on now that you think from that performance alone is going to be a significant impact?
Yeah, obviously you mentioned there the contrast in the first half to the second half was massive. I think obviously, it's been a bit of a story of our season, really, not being able to put a full sort of 90-minute game sort of in. But yeah, I think, first half, as bad as it was, I think we did create some chances. Maybe, on another day we could have took a couple of them and the game's obviously different. Goals change games. But obviously, not many people would have been happy with that first half performance. I think, we sort of looked open again in the midfield. They were sort of, creating opportunities at will. And I just think, that's something that needs to be addressed, especially now with the run of games that we've got coming up, obviously playing some of the top teams. But yeah, obviously the contrast in the second half, obviously nothing to lose, if you like. I think the players just sort of went for it. The crowd made a big sort of effort to try and lift them, and obviously I think we got a goal right at the right time, and sort of the momentum was with us for that second half. I think obviously, they still did create chances and maybe could have scored a couple of goals on the counter attack, which is something I was a little bit worried about. But
yeah,
see, to show the character and sort of to come back from 2-0 down in Champions League game, as you mentioned, we were bottom of the group and ended up the night finishing top of the group. So it was obviously a great win in the end, although there are things that need to be sort of tightened up and addressed, obviously, with bigger games coming up. But, fair play to the lads and sort of, they got that win, which was much needed. And obviously, that'll take them now into the game on Sunday with a little bit more confidence.
I agree. And before I come into your opinion there, Gary, I was as a rival fan looking in, I just want to say good evening to you, Keane. Hope you're well. I do agree with you, Phil, in terms of, it was the contrast opinion where I feel like the first half I genuinely thought we were not to scratch at all, and I thought Atlanta, they came at us in the way that I kind of expected, dominating the ball, they're passing it quickly around the midfield. It was too easy, which is unfortunately becoming a recurring theme, which is quite worrying, where our midfield is getting split apart too much. But in the second half, we changed things up, the system changed, we went at them a bit more, and it reflected in the goals we got. And I'm glad that we turned things around within that period, and I'm hoping that we build it, because I agree with you. I think there's a few things we need to iron out, whether we do it gradually or whether we can do it in a quick period of time, we'll find out. But I just wanted to ask Gary, from a Liverpool fan's perspective, looking in, obviously you're probably not watching United much, obviously you've got Liverpool to deal with, but I assume because obviously Man United are due to play Liverpool this weekend, you may have watched the game against Atlanta. What's your overall opinion on United's performance, both in that game and in games this season? Have you got any opinions on Man United?
Well, to be fair, I just love football in general. United are probably one of the biggest teams in world football. Growing up, they were the team you hated. They were because they were always winning. But I actually did watch the game on Wednesday. It was the tale of two different stories, two different teams. Atlanta went to Anfield last year and won 2-0, and on the other contrast, Liverpool bet 5-0 over there. So I knew they were going to come and they were going to attack you. And when they were going in at half time, I was like, I'm not really surprised, because they carved you open very easily. But in the next half, like Rashford, I'm sure as soon as he gets match fit, he could have won that match 5-2, 5-3, maybe because he missed an awful lot of easy chances. But he played well in bits where he had to, but the defence, there's something wrong from previous years where you've been rock solid but not going forward enough. And I felt you're trying to find a happy medium, but it's very hard to do that in one of the world's biggest clubs.
Yeah, I agree. And I look at the contrast in terms of like our defence compared to, say, for example, Liverpool's, where you've got a rocking defensive Van Dijk, who, to be fair, he hasn't been at his best yet since he's returned from injury. He hasn't been his best yet, but you still see he has a significant impact in terms of leadership in the defence. I think United have the leadership there. It's just not sticking for a long period of time. I think we need to get the most out of it. We've got Maguire, who is a leader. We've got Varane, but Varane's sadly not fully fit at the moment. He's been injured. So we don't have a first choice player, but we're having to make do with what we've got. But you look at the shape and it's just not consistent enough. And I think it's just maybe they've just not gelled that much on the pitch because obviously they've not been in the best of form. And you want to get things right, but do you want to get there really quickly and then make a mess, or do you want to get there slowly, but you have people moaning all the time? And I think there's just a conflict of both sides, and it really is annoying when you want to get back to your best. And I think that's affecting United, but it will come down to that. I'm gonna push on with something, because also you did mention Rashford, and for that he has only just returned, but he did score the 2 goals in the behind doors friendly against Blackburn. He did score in the league game as well at the weekend, which much needed for us, much needed confidence boost for him. And then he scored against Atlanta. Phil, what's your overall opinion on Rashford? Like, in terms of like, now he's injury free, he's come back into the team. Also, it's a much needed boost for us, an attacking player. Do you think on the left hand side we're going to be a bit more balanced now, like in terms of like Rashford returning?
Yeah, I think it's obviously a massive boost. Obviously, he offers things that we've maybe been lacking in terms of the penetration and then runs in behind. I think he's somebody who, although sometimes is quite frustrating when you watch him with some of the decision making and maybe some of the chances that he misses, he always poses that threat. And I think he's somebody who's given us a massive boost. Obviously, he's come back and scored 2 goals in 2 games, which is, great for him. Obviously, I've been injured myself. It's always nice when you've been out for such a long time and you want to come back and try and help the team. And obviously for him, that'll give him some confidence and make him feel back part of the group. So yeah, as I say, I think he's somebody who, on his day, he's a world beater. He doesn't always, sort of produce his best stuff, and he can make sort of some simple things look a little bit average at times. But for me, he's somebody who we have missed, because I think he does offer that sort of different dynamic to that front line in terms of making runs in behind and stretching defences, which I think we'll definitely need against Liverpool, because obviously they're, a solid unit at the back, and they obviously get the full-backs bombing on. So I think obviously that'll give, Trent something to think about. Obviously the other way, I think he does have the beating of him from previous games. So that'd be an interesting duel to sort of see how that pans out if he's fit this Sunday.
I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a fantastic battle. Like the one that stands out for me was the 2-1 win, in terms of like he had him on toast, and it was the way like he worked Trent to a point where it got a lot of people, like, no disrespect to Trent Alexander because he's a brilliant attacking fullback, but it was in that game where people started to ask the question of, can he actually defend? Because you look at his positions at time where he was all over the place, because Rashford had him one spot on the left-hand side, quick in his right. Rashford's got the pace, but Trent Alexander-Arnold's a fullback. He should have that awareness of defence, and he was at times getting caught. But we've seen it at times where both each other cancel each other out really well, and it's a very exciting battle. And I think that's one that I'm looking forward to on Sunday. But I think the best thing about it is it will now give the chance for Sancho going the right-hand side. Whether it be Sancho or Greenwood, it gives them a chance to at least say, well, we know the left-hand side's covered with Rashford's pace. He can get at the fullback. We can just concentrate on our side, and I'm looking forward to it. There is a comment in here that I think you both are going to enjoy, because there's a little bit of you'll see where the context in a minute. We do have Phil and Gary on the show. there is a little bit of humour in that. I'll admit that's brilliant. And also good evening to Mike as well. Hope you're well, my friend. I just wanted to ask purely because I know Gary's got a few questions for you, Phil. I also have a few questions. Anyone in the live chat, by the way, if you do have any questions for Phil, please do. I will read them out and ask them. But I have one outstanding question for you. You did answer it like previously before and on the Talk of the Devils, but it's one that's like slightly similar to a question asked before. Overall, your United career, in terms of like which players physically inspired you in terms of like Man United? Like, who was your early heroes that led to you saying this? Like, as much as you want to be a Man United fan, like, who did you aspire to be? Was there any, like, obviously your individual style? Was there anyone that set apart for you? You're like, I want to be the next him.
Yeah, I think there was a few, but the biggest one for me was obviously being a centre forward, and at the time I was at the club, Ruud van Nistelrooy was, probably the biggest sort of iconic figure personally for me, looking up as a young academy player trying to sort of break into the first team. Who would I want to be like? Who do I go and watch at Old Trafford every week and sort of keep my eye on the most? He was the man, and obviously, getting to know him on a personal level and sort of seeing him in training and sort of, having some shooting drills and stuff with him. He was a great guy and somebody who I sort of connected with, and he was obviously one of my all-time greatest players for United. Not just because he was a fantastic player, but as I said, then got to know him on a personal level, and he was a really, really nice guy and somebody who I could, as a centre forward, you want to learn your trade. He was somebody who you could sort of speak to, ask questions, nice enough to, take time out of his day when he maybe, could have been going home and doing other things to sort of stay behind and work on things with me. So, yeah, he for me was probably the biggest sort of player I sort of idolised and looked up to. But again, I could mention loads of others. The club at the time where I was there was loads of amazing players who was similar in that respect, that they'd give you that time of day and they'd always try and help you. So yeah, obviously, lucky for me being at the club at such a good time with the crop of players that we had.
I've always had that question asked me, but like in terms of like your Man United heroes, I've always said my all-time favorite Man United player was David Beckham, because like when I was younger, that's like he was the first player I ever seen in a Man United shirt, and it was the way he conducted himself on the pitch, like the free kicks, the corners, the crossing ability, and it always stuck my mind. But I've always been asked the question, who do I think is the best? Who's the best striker I've ever seen play for Man United? And I always say straight away, no hesitation, no blink. It's always Ruud van Nistelrooy. He's the best striker I've ever seen play at Old Trafford. If I'd seen maybe Dennis Law or Andy Cole. Andy Cole's another fantastic player. I only seen 2 years of Andy Cole, so I can't really, no disrespect to him, even though I've watched games back, no respect. I won't put him above Van Nistelrooy purely because I've seen Van Nistelrooy for 5 years, and I've seen all of that, so I have that etched in my memory. Like the goal against Fulham, the Champions League performances, the goal against Real Madrid at Old Trafford, the goal against Millwall at the Millennium Stadium, they all stand out for me because that's what he was to me. So it's just great hearing how you speak about Van Nistelrooy and what an impact it was for you. Like, he's staying behind. It's that experience where people say that older players don't necessarily. I've heard this before, and I thought it was a very stupid comment, and I actually called someone out on it. They said older players only care really about certain young players because it means they're not going to get challenged. And I'm like, I think that's going to be the most stupid comment I've ever heard, because older players want young players to succeed because they know they're going to follow them and they want that. So I think it's great that he in particular stayed behind and he saw in you, I'm actually going to go to this guy because I can nurture him. Is there any particular advice that he gave you that you've never forgotten?
Nothing really that he sort of said. All just the usual stuff, really. Like you obviously need to work hard. You need to keep, training. You need to keep practicing. Obviously, in terms of being a striker, your finishing is probably your main sort of bread and butter that you need to be, top class at. And he was somebody who, when I used to watch him in the finishing drills, it was just like an absolute exhibition. He was just so good, left foot, right foot, just putting it in the side netting every single time. And obviously, you don't get that good, by not putting the work rate in. And he was somebody who was always on the training ground trying to improve himself. And again, that's why I sort of looked up to him so much, because I knew that he sort of, was somebody who was obviously a naturally gifted player, but he also worked so hard to try and sort of get to the level that he did. And obviously he was one of the best strikers I've ever seen in terms of, goals and finishing and being so clinical in them sort of big games.
Absolutely. And before I come on to Gary's questions, I've got one more question for you. Did he ever score any drills any of the drills from outside the box? Because obviously we all know in the first team on the main stage, he only scored once outside the box in training. Did he ever score outside the box?
Yeah, no, he used to. I mean, to be fair, like when we used to do training, you training drills, you're shooting from all angles, inside the box, outside the box, left foot, right foot, volleys, headers. So in training, he was more than capable of scoring outside the box. Let's not sort of discard that fact. He had an absolutely unbelievable strike. And I just think the way that Man United was at that time and the way he played, he was just basically a fox in the box. Anything that got dropped in the box, anything that got whipped across the 6-yard box, running through on goal, he always made it as easy as he could because he had the time and the composure. He was somebody who was just a sort of lethal finisher. He probably, if he looks back, he probably feels as though, he maybe could have shot more, maybe outside the box and stuff, but, he's not going to complain with the amount of goals he scored and sort of, the record he had, it was, exceptional.
Yeah, he was just supreme. 150 goals and 251 appearances says all for me. I mean, that's just, it's just absolutely fantastic. Gary, question. I believe you've got some questions for our guest this evening. Obviously, yourself as well, another guest, but you are a Liverpool fan, so I'm looking forward to hearing your questions.
I only have the two. Cheers, Reece. I only have the two, Phil. I suppose I'm a Liverpool fan, but I'm an Irish fan as well. Your time at the club, you would have had an awful lot of an Irish contingent over which, John O'Shea, Paul McShane would come to mind from an Irish point of view for me. What were they like to, I suppose, be around, and I suppose what do you think that drove yourself on and them on within the setup? How did you get on with them? Was there much cultural differences with you?
Well, I'll start off with Paul McShane. Obviously, Paul was a year older than me, but obviously I played in the same team as Paul, and honestly, I couldn't speak highly enough of Paul. What a guy! What a player! Probably one of the players that I actually looked up to first off when I first started, because when I first signed and went full time, I actually moved up an age group and moved into that group with Paul, and he sort of took me under his wing a little bit. And what a lad! As I say, he was a great player. He was somebody who literally reminded me of a Nemanja Vidic in terms of his, no nonsense work rate. Put his heart and soul in the pitch every single time he went into training or a game. And obviously someone who I still speak to this present day now. So great to see him obviously back at the club doing the under-23s. Somebody who, he's played at all different levels of football, but he's had a fantastic career. He knows the club. So obviously the lads there now who are going to be, getting coached under him is obviously a massive benefit for them, because he's obviously been there and done it. He was a great player, great lad. And, again, I couldn't really speak highly enough of Paul. John O'Shea, again, another character, used to get on really well with John. Obviously, the Irish lads always seem to have that little bit of a, bit of cheeky banter and, like a bevy every now and again. But John was another one who I gravitated towards in terms of when I was ever involved with the first team or just around Carrington in general. He was another one who would always have time for the younger lads. He'd always make you feel welcome into a conversation or invite you into a game or whatever was going on. He was somebody who obviously, I enjoyed a few team nights out with John, and he told me some funny stories. I can't really sort of delve into them.
Not for this show.
We'll save that for another time. But great, obviously great lads, and obviously I still keep in contact with actually both of them to this present day, which says a lot about who they was as people as well.
Oh, thank you so much for that. And I just have one more about, obviously from the Liverpool Manchester United's point of view, like, everyone talks about their first team, but their academies are arch rivals as well. Was there any player, say from a Liverpool point of view, that stuck out to you and you always thought, I don't want to play against him, like, because he's that one player that you're always like, you love to challenge, but at the same time you don't want to see his name on the team sheet?
Do you mean from when I was back in the academy? Did you say?
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, when I used to do, ironically, I used to do so well against Liverpool in the academy. Like, I was actually talking about this the other day with my dad. I think I scored about 3 hat-tricks in sort of like 4 games against Liverpool. Like, I just seemed to do well in that particular fixture for whatever reason. But yeah, they always used to be like really good games. Obviously, like the first team, when you're playing against Liverpool, it's drilled into you. You've got to win them games. It's the biggest game on the fixture list. It's a derby game. It's the bragging rights. But yeah, I used to have some really good games. I mean, I'm just trying to think back to some of the defenders that I would have played against. Some of the names you maybe were aware of, maybe not. But Jack Hobbs was a centre half who I played against. Was very good technically and quite a big physical lad. There was Lee Peltier as well, was another one. At the time when I was there, I always used to have a good little tussle with him. But as I say, I sort of did well in them games, so it was good games. But again, they always had good players. There was obviously other lads who probably can't think of off the top of my head. Who were in and around the team at that time, who was pushing maybe for the first team. And again, it's just about in them big games, in the derby games, you want to always try and do yourself justice. You've got to sort of channel the emotion. Yeah. You've got to try and go out there and give everything, but in the right way. And it was always good games. But as I say, I think we had such a good team, not just in the first team, but the academy and the reserves. It was sort of. I think we sort of come out on top quite a lot of the time in that era. So yeah, always good sort of fond memories looking back on them.
Oh, cheers for that.
Yeah, no problem, mate.
I do appreciate those. I actually have one last question going back to your academy days, actually, before we press on. I really want to ask you this question because I didn't ask you this previously, and I really should have done. Who would you say was probably your toughest, like the toughest player you played with in the academy, and who would you like from that period? And who would you say was your toughest opponent?
So tough. Do you mean toughest team in terms of the players?
Just like no, like just say like one particular player in general that gave you like your team or just single opponent. Yeah, like
Micah Richards. I used Micah Richards for Man City because we used to play Man City quite a lot. Obviously, you'd play them in the league. There'd be the Manchester Cup. There'd be the Manchester Senior Cups and stuff. So we used to play Manchester City quite a lot. And I think Micah Richards obviously was a similar age to me. And I used to... It was funny. I used to love playing against him. Although he was really quick and strong, I fancied myself because that used to be like probably my 2 best attributes as well. So we was both quick, both strong. And I used to have some really good tussles with Micah, and obviously, he went on to be a great player, and obviously, did really well for City, and obviously represented England. And when I think back to the games I played against Micah, at that time, sort of we both sort of gave each other as good as we got, and obviously I did really well again in them type of games against Man City. It's good, obviously, just looking back and thinking. The players that I was playing against have obviously, got that caliber behind them, and they've gone on to have good careers. But obviously, in that moment in time, you just want to try and prove yourself, and you back yourself to do the best you can. But yeah, he was someone who I always used to look forward to playing against, and I knew it was going to be a tough day. But obviously, you want to rise to that challenge and prove how good you are, and that's obviously what I tried to do, and did on some occasions.
And in terms of like teammates, who would you say was like for yourself? Who would you say was like maybe like the toughest, like in terms of like maybe like their attitude on the pitch, in terms of like we're here to win, like there's no stopping us, like that ruthless attitude? Who would you say was probably the toughest in terms of like obviously because yourself, you had that fantastic mental attitude yourself. Like I've watched games back with yourself, and there's one game where you, like So literally just you're up front on your own. I think it was like a lower level side. I don't know, not Arsenal. They're a lower level side now, but there was a few games where you were literally on your own, and there's literally the midfielder just trying to swamp, but they're being pressured back, and you just stand there up front on your own. There's literally a long ball chipped to you, and you're like just turning and you scored a volley. But I can't remember who it was. But in terms of just overall yourself, if you could like from that team itself, like who would you say was like probably the toughest in terms of their attitude on the field?
Paul McShane, definitely.
He's
100%.
such an animal. Such an animal.
I mean, Paul McShane, in terms of like, if you could sort of pick a player who reminded me of Nemanja Vidic, it'd be Paul McShane. In terms of in training, on a match day, if you wanted a centre half who was going to put his body on the line, was going to wear his heart on his sleeve every single time he put on a United shirt. For me, he was sort of he'd have bad games and stuff, and he probably wouldn't always perform to the best of his ability, but you could never question his attitude. You could never question his work rate. He always tried to lead by example. And for me, he was somebody who obviously I played with throughout, going full time and I had that 4 years full time with Paul. He was probably, the toughest, not just in games for us, but in training as well. Obviously, I played up front. He was a centre half, and you don't want to be playing against him in training. You sort of coming off with like cuts and bruises and elbows to the head because he just doesn't, he doesn't care. He's there to win a game of football, whether it's training, whether it's, with his mates for a kickabout. He doesn't want to lose, and that's the attitude you need to have when you're playing at the top level. And he was I've said, he's a great lad, but obviously on the pitch, he's horrible to play against in a nice way.
Well, we all know that the future teams now are still playing against him in our under-23s. Credit to him for coming back in the way he's doing. He's come back as not only as a coach, but he's playing as a centre half, like in the under-23s, and it just shows that he's still valued in the game for his knowledge, and also the fact is he brings a never say die attitude. But he's one. Keane knows I swear now and again, but probably the best way to sum he is a mean, aggressive son of a bitch. But he's a lovely human being. Like I've never met him, but I've seen interviews of him, and he's a lovely human being. So I think it's absolutely fantastic. And we do appreciate those questions. Guys, in the live chat, if you do have any further questions for Phil, I will read them out. We will come back to them. There's no shame in that. Phil is a lovely human being. Gary, fantastic questions as well. So thank you for asking those. We are going to push on. We do need to give Liverpool some airtime. I know it's offensive, but we still have to. Gary, you are currently second at the moment in the Premier League. You're currently second in the Premier League, which makes me sick. You are succeeding in the Champions League group stage as well. You've got a very aggressive Champions League group. You have got the likes of Porto. You've got Atletico Madrid, who you got the better of. You beat them 3-2. I'll give them that. To be fair, many expected Liverpool to lose that game, in all fairness, because of you never get the best of Simeone. You just don't do it. And obviously you've got Milan as well. Looking at your league form and looking at your European run at the moment, how confident are you in this Liverpool team now based on your current form, and where do you think Liverpool can go this season if you avoid the unfortunate, which is your Achilles heel, which is injuries?
Yeah, it's like last year, I think every United fan thought themselves that, oh God, here we go again, not this nightmare again. But as you said, look, the injuries came along and haunted us very badly. And Mo Salah, to his credit, absolutely carried us. I remember me and Keane had a lengthy conversation about that before. About he's our rock. Everyone thinks it's Van Dijk, but if Salah was to get injured, I actually fear for us an awful lot more than what would happen with Van Dijk. Our form and where we are on the table, I actually think we should be running away with the league. I actually think we should have bet Chelsea, because like they were 10 men for nearly, what was it, 60 minutes of the match?
Mm-hmm.
Well, not 60 minutes, sorry, but an entire half at least. And we should have bet Brentford as well. So there's 4 points after dropping as well. When we got the group stage, I just put my hand in I face palmed and just went, we got the group of death. I knew we would. And we've really, after coming out of it, you're dead right. We hate Atletico Madrid. Not for the fact that they're a well-run club. They're actually, I love them because they gave us Fernando Torres, but every time we play Diego Simeone, he beats us. Like, he knocked us out of Champions League, not last year, but the year before that. Quite convincingly as well. It came to Anfield when it was a fortress and beat us 3-2 on the night. But I'm quite confident. I think we'll be thereabouts in the league. The Champions League, you know yourself, it depends on the draw you get. Like, when we got to the final the last time, like, we had a very handy draw up until the semi-final, and it depends on what you get. Like, we got Real Madrid last year. We met them at the wrong time. Another time we could have bet them. I'd like to think as Klopp only sees those two competitions. He sees the rest as a chance to try the fringe players and the youth players. So
yeah,
I think we'll probably finish second in the league, if I'm 100% honest. That's one thing I'm always on when it comes to Liverpool. And in the Champions League, I'd like to see us get to the semi-finals or at least the final, at least put on a very good showing in it as well. But we can challenge on all four fronts. It's impossible, not for our squad.
Yeah, you're quite a depleted squad in that sense. Like, you just don't have the numbers, and you've already got players that are going in like, for January for the AFCON. That's crucial games there. You're going to be losing out on. Phil, yourself, like as a Man United fan looking at Liverpool, like what's your thoughts on Liverpool at the moment? Like in terms of like where they're going, like do you have like serious doubts that this Liverpool team could go and cause even more pain to us United fans? Because I certainly hope they don't. But like from yourself looking in.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely they've started the season superb, and for me, in terms of the starting 11, it's probably the one of, if not the strongest in sort of world football for me. I just think where they may struggle in terms of the squad depth, I think that's where Liverpool maybe don't quite have the squad depth of like a Man City or a Chelsea in terms of if some of these players did get injured or. When Salah and Mane are obviously going off to the African nations, who's going to fill in for that period of time when they're away, and are they going to be able to continue that, winning machine? It's going to be interesting to see. I do think, there is opportunities for teams against him. I think defensively, they haven't been as good recently, so I think obviously, looking forward to Sunday in terms of, can Man United capitalise on that, but. Obviously with the likes of Mo Salah and obviously Mane and Firmino, that's a formidable front three. And obviously, the form that Salah's been in recently. And obviously, we've seen the quality he possesses, especially the 2 goals in the last couple of weeks have been nothing short of sensational. So, he's somebody you've got to sort of try and keep quiet. But obviously, it's a difficult task as it's been proven sort of in the last few months. He's a world-class player, and I wouldn't sort of argue with anyone at the moment saying he's probably the best player in the world at the moment.
I don't think many would disagree with you either. In terms of right now, he is in blistering form.
Right now, not ever. Because I mean, people were saying,
to
Ronaldo. I think that's a little bit disrespectful.
I was actually going to come onto that. Actually, I was going to ask, what is your point of view in this comparison? Not like in all fairness to Gary, I think it's the most ridiculous comparison I've ever heard.
Yeah, Ronaldo's done it for 12 years, minimum.
That's it. Longevity in terms of Ronaldo at the top level, the amount of goals he scored, the cups he's won at various different teams and levels. It's, I mean, no disrespect to Mo Salah, the football he's playing at the moment is, out of this world, and he's an absolutely amazing player. But I think to sort of compare him to Cristiano Ronaldo is sort of a little bit. Premature, and I think it's a bit sort of disrespectful in the nicest way possible. But I mean, if he carries on, like this for the next, 4 or 5 seasons, then you could maybe put that conversation back out there. But at this moment in time, I think it's obviously a little bit ludicrous to compare the two.
Who do you think, if you want to look at comparisons, like fair comparisons, like I think the only comparisons you can make is like Ronaldo and Messi that's a comparison. Mbappe versus Haaland is a comparison in their sense. For Mohamed Salah, who would you realistically compare him against? Because his like the way he plays as an inverted forward, it's unique and it's different. I don't know who you would realistically compare him to.
It's quite a difficult one, really. I mean, Bale or maybe a Hazard. But I mean, again, they're both sort of in previous years dropped off a little bit when they was on obviously in their prime. I think that's that'd be a conversation that you could probably have with where Salah is. Salah's far obviously superior to them two right now. And I think obviously that rightly so he's been consistently scoring goals and putting in sort of great performances for Liverpool for a long time now. So I just think it's a difficult one to sort of compare him to anybody, because at the moment he's doing what nobody else is, and that's consistently winning games for Liverpool, scoring all types of goals, and that's what every team needs and every team wants, and every team thrives to have someone like a Mo Salah who you can rely on, and you know what you're going to get from every sort of game. It's that's why they get paid the top money. And obviously £400,000, I think Liverpool should definitely give him that, because he's worth that weight in gold for me. If they didn't give it him, if they lost him, it'd be tragedy. I think.
I would agree with that completely. Just a comment here from Maisie, who's a Man United fan. He says, "Lovely to meet you, Phil." And obviously, that's not my name. There's no Y in my name. I'm getting sick of this.
Reece.
There's a few things. I get a lot on this channel, but that's one of them. I do have a question for you both, an open, honest one. Gary, you can choose Salah if you wish, but the question is from Keane: Prime Salah or Prime Hazard? I assume he's either who would you have or who was better. And I'll just start with you first, Gary.
To be honest, I never rated Hazard anyway, so I take Salah every single day of the week. As much as an amazing player, people always tell me I never rated Hazard.
Fair enough. I think that's a fair opinion. Not everyone's going to rate players in a different manner. Phil, yourself, who would you choose? Prime Salah, Prime Hazard, or would you just go flip side and go, nah, I'd rather have Prime Ronaldo?
Well, if Prime Ronaldo was an option, and then I'd
we would chuck it. We always flip the switch.
Yeah. But no, I think I would agree with Gary just on the fact that the amount of goals that Mo Salah offers you is sort of something that you can't sort of look past. And although Hazard was an exceptional talent and he could win a game on his own and produce magical moments, I think if he was looking for that consistency and sort of longevity in terms of what Mo Salah brings to the team week in, week out, I think he's somebody you'd be silly to sort of dismiss the fact that he sort of wins games on his own and he can produce moments sort of every other week. So for me, it's Mo Salah, but Hazard was an exceptional and still is a great player. I just think he's had a bit of a sort of hard time, maybe moving over to Real Madrid, injuries, and maybe not sort of hit the ground running. Yeah.
I'm going to be a bit of a fun stage now. This is where it's going to get good. I've got a wee fun couple of questions for you. We'll see how you respond to it. I'm going to start with you first, Gary. In terms of Manchester United versus Liverpool derbies, whether it be at Old Trafford or at Anfield, whether it be a cup game or even just, a pre-season friendly that caused people nightmares. What for you is probably the best moment and the best derby the best derby game you've watched between Liverpool versus Man United?
Oh, that is a very good question. I think the best. The best game, I think you're probably going to know what it is, that I've ever watched is the 4-1 at Old Trafford. Like I think that would be struggled to ever be topped. Like especially United going ahead as well, Ronaldo penalty. I think that'll struggle to be topped in terms of the joy I had that day. But I suppose the best moment was I've only ever been to one Liverpool Man United match before at Anfield, and Liverpool had won 3-1 on the day. It was the game where Carragher tackled Nani and there was the crying and the yada yada yada. But I got to see Scholesy and Gerrard on the pitch at the same time, And I always thought, Steven Gerrard, greatest midfielder ever. I loved him at the time. And seeing Scholesy pass was just so natural. Every time he pinged the ball, he looked for Rooney, and it was straight onto Rooney's foot, and Rooney was starting to cause so much trouble. And Scholesy did it as if it was nothing to him. And I got to, that was a thing I got to witness as a football fan, was just, I seen the debate and why the debate was there. Gerrard was able to spring it, but Gerrard had to look, and you could see him thinking. Scholesy was it was so natural. And that's not pandering. I'm just saying, everyone has their debates in football, but it was great to see it lived out live that day for me.
Mm-hmm. I think you're probably the only Liverpool fans I've ever spoken to that actually speaks about Paul Scholes in an actual good manner. Most of them just mug the absolute rip out of him. It's actually good to hear for a change somebody actually praising a player that actually deserves the credit for what he actually achieved.
They just go on and say about the usual thing about he can't tackle or whatever. That wasn't his job.
Or he never won an individual award when he didn't care about
that. Yeah, no, I don't but that's the rivalry as well at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Feels great. And I'm going to come on to you in a second, Phil, but there are some comments I want to read out first. The first one is from Evan saying Phil Marsh over Phil Jones. I'm not gonna disagree with that. Phil contributes without memes. No disrespect to Jones, but Marsh scores, Jones makes faces, and Gary Egan over Gary Neville. That's controversial. That's controversial. Keane's comments. He's talking about the 4-1. He says that was on his confirmation day. That must have stung. And Evan saying Lampard is the greatest midfielder ever. Only when you're sleeping, mate, because he doesn't compare. And not fit to lace Scholes' boots. That's true. Lampard would have to shine his boots for him. Lampard can shine up Scholes' boots, and then Scholes can boot him in the knees. That'll do me nicely. But Phil, for yourself, not only have you watched games, you've also played in games. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an extra edge here. What would you say, even as an academy, is there academy level, is there any particular game for you that has the best moment and the best derby you've ever witnessed or stood out for? Between this derby, is there any that for you in a heartbeat just stands out?
Yeah, to be fair, it's obviously my personal one. I would obviously say one about the first team, but this particular game, we won 4-3, and I scored the perfect hat trick. I scored a left foot, a right foot, and a header, and we won 4-3 at Melwood, which was obviously, for me growing up, I played my first ever proper final at Melwood as a kid, growing up, and I won. Robbie Fowler presented me with a trophy actually, because I got sort of player of the match. So obviously to go back there playing representing Manchester United and to score a hat trick and win the game, for me was obviously something that I sort of always look back on and sort of, that was a special day and special moment for me. I've still got the actual ball and got all the lads to sign it. So that was obviously a big moment for me in my career. In terms of looking back on a moment, in terms of when the club, I always think of this goal and this player. It just makes me laugh because when he scored, he just didn't know what to do, and it was John O'Shea when he scored at Anfield in sort of honestly, that goal, it was just so brilliant because when it hit the net, he was so surprised that he'd scored for one, and then for two, he was just running around he didn't know where to run, didn't know what to do, didn't know sort of who to go to, and it was just honestly, that goal just sticks out for me as one of the sort of best United goals, and especially to do it away at Anfield, and for someone who doesn't get many goals, it was brilliant. I remember the lads was sort of giving him loads of stick for that for weeks.
Yeah,
celebration and stuff, but obviously he popped up with some big goals, John. I mean, I remember the chip against Arsenal.
That was a highlight for me.
Unbelievable free, finish from somebody you'd never expect, that kind of finish to come from. And again, he was sort of surprised himself a little bit with the celebration. But yeah, some good moments there.
There's one question in here, but before I come on to Maisie's question, which is absolutely fantastic, I got one question for you. Which was better, John O'Shea pocketing Luis Figo, or John O'Shea's chip versus Arsenal at Highbury when we beat them 4-2? Which one would you say, in your opinion, was better?
I think the nutmeg on Figo, to be honest, because that play, like, I don't know how many. I see it like every now and again on social media and stuff, but yeah, for somebody obviously of Figo's class, and he was obviously one of the world's best players at that moment in time, and such an iconic figure, and obviously John O'Shea just gets sort of dismissed a little bit unfairly, I think, as sort of like a United utility player to majestically nutmeg him and just casually stroll by him. It was class. So yeah, that'd be
it's still everywhere. Like, it doesn't matter where you look. You just type in John O'Shea versus Figo, and it just pops up, and it's just his face after he does it. You can see his face he's gleaming, and I'm like, the cheekiest bastard alive to do that to Figo.
Yeah,
I'm like, it's amazing. There are a couple of comments in here, so Gary may not like this one, but to be fair, Gerrard's in second. Maisie says Scholes, Gerrard, Lampard in that order in her eyes. Mike says Scholes over Gerrard and Lampard combined. But there is a question here for Phil, though. This is from Maisie. She's asking, for anyone who's in the academy, what advice would you give to the ones wanting to get into first team football?
I think honestly, I mean, when I look back at sort of my time and sort of trying to get into the first team, obviously for me it was such a difficult task because there was so many fantastic players, and it was always going to be difficult, but you've still got to just trust yourself. You've got to put the work in. I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, you've got to put the extra training sessions in. You've got to be disciplined. You've got to sort of sacrifice a lot of things. You can't be going out doing things you shouldn't be doing days before a game. It'll get picked up on straight away. You've just got to sort of dedicate yourself and make sure you do the best you can do. And at the end of the day, if you do that and you sort of still fall short, at least you can sort of look back and think, well, I gave it everything and I tried my best. So yeah, just obviously putting the effort in. You can always be doing more, because obviously one thing I sort of look back on, and somebody said, I can't remember who it was, I think it was Rennie Meulenstein actually. He used to always sort of say to me, like, if you've got time to be doing something, you should be trying to improve yourself, because there's other lads who will be, and they'll be overtaking you. And obviously that stuck with me in terms of, whenever you've got any spare time, instead of going maybe, having a mess about, or playing pool or table tennis or having a swim, you could be, going in the gym, maybe, getting stronger. You could be going, practicing free kicks or penalties, or, dribbling, getting some crosses and doing some crossing and finishing. And I think that's sort of what separates sort of the good players from the really great players, because, ability gets you so far, and, the rest is down to you, and obviously work rate and all that kind of stuff. You need to sort of not sort of forget about that.
Yeah, because is that not the thing where talent gets you so far, but work rate gets you further? Like, because it's purely because, like, you can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't work, no one's going to care.
Yeah, it's mad, because obviously when I think back, and there was so many talented players who I played with, and you think, wow, what amazing players, and what amazing talent they had at that age, but because they mentally wasn't tuned in, or they didn't put that extra effort in, and they didn't sacrifice things where they was going out and doing other things, then it's so easy to just fall by the wayside. And it's a shame, because some of these players was far more technically gifted and far more at that age sort of ahead of other lads, but the other lads overtook him, and the other lads sort of went past him, because they had that other side of the game where they was dedicated, they put the extra effort in, they did extra training, they didn't go out and nights before games, they didn't sort of get into all the wrong side of stuff and flash cars and girls, and there are loads of distractions as a young player. You're at Manchester United, people want to be your friend, people want to go out with you, and all that kind of thing. You've got to try and separate yourself from all that kind of stuff, and just focus on what your main objective is, and that is obviously to become a professional footballer, and first and foremost, you want to get into the Manchester United 11. If that's not possible, it's then where do I go next? What's my next challenge? I want to go to the, next best thing, and that's how you've got to think.
Absolutely. I do have one question for you before we push on, because I wanted to do a little combined 11 work against you both. But what I want to ask you is, what's your overall thoughts on Sir Alex Ferguson? Obviously, we could sit here for hours and we already know he's the greatest manager that ever lived. But in terms of an impact on you, not just as a pro footballer, but your impact, like the impact on you as a human being. Because obviously you were a very young lad when he was the manager, and obviously he was there with you as well. And also you had Eric Harrison as well, probably one of the greatest coaches the Man United have ever had. For that level, he was an absolute hero for what he did. But in terms of Sir Alex Ferguson, not just as the boss, but as the man, what sort of impact did he have on you as a human being? Like, what sort of impact did he have on you?
Immense. I mean, he was, when you talk about managers, he was somebody who was so good, and he was well respected, obviously, by all the players. But not just that, he treated every single person at Carrington the same, whether he was a cleaner, whether he was the first team captain. There was nobody else who was better than anybody else, and I think that's why the respect levels was so good, and he treated everyone as a family. Obviously, for me personally, obviously getting involved in a car accident and suffering a horrific injury that I did, the way he went about it and sort of made sure I had all the best treatment, came and visited me at my house, reassured me, give me an extra year on my contract. Always took time out to speak to me and sort of, if you walking past in the corridor, he'd ask me about, how your day's been and what you've been up to and how's your family. So, having someone like that who's obviously, the absolute GOAT to sort of, speak to people on a level and just to sort of be a normal person and make you feel at ease was great. And, that's the kind of feeling that you want to have as a young player. You don't want to feel overawed. Sometimes, obviously, it's good to have that sort of aura as a manager, which he definitely had. But also, he was, he was a normal person, and he sort of, was fantastic. I've got a funny story actually, which you may or may not heard, you, Reece, because I may have told this, but this one particular day, I was in the canteen. And he just came over to me and he said to me, have you ever tried haggis? Because obviously he's being from Scotland, he'd put some haggis on the menu for this particular day.
Oh, brilliant.
So I said, oh, no, I haven't. So he said, right. He said, come up here with me. You're going to try some haggis. So he took me up to the front of the thing and obviously got the chef to put some haggis on my plate. And when I went back and sat down, I was sat obviously about 50 yards away from him, but he was staring straight at me, like sat opposite him. But obviously he was sat with all the coaching staff, and I was just sat opposite him.
Oh, God.
And I was looking at this haggis, and I was thinking, oh, this looks horrendous. Like I definitely don't fancy having a bite of this.
I can vouch as a Scotsman, it looks horrible. I can vouch.
Yeah. But obviously, managers sort of staring at me, and I've promised him I'm going to try this haggis, and so yeah. I had a bite of it and I was like, oh, this is rank, this is horrible. But I actually had to like keep chewing it because he was staring at me smiling, and I was thinking like, oh, this is horrible. So I kept it in my mouth for about 10 minutes, and then he left and went out and did whatever he was doing. I went and spat it in the bin. And then later on in the day, I caught up with him again, and he was like, oh, how did you find that haggis? I was like, oh, it was brilliant, boss, loved it. I'm going to go and buy some this afternoon. Just to try and keep in the good books, but yeah, no, it weren't for me, definitely not.
I can vouch, honestly, I've had haggis once, and as a Scotsman, I can tell you, I would rather go to hell than eat haggis again. Honestly, I would rather do that.
Yeah,
that's how much I hate it.
Yeah, I think if you'd have offered me another first team appearance and I've had to hammer a plate of haggis, it'd have been a tough. I'd have tried my best, but I don't know.
Right, lads, we've decided we're playing Liverpool today. We've got the tactics. There's only one thing: if you want to play, you have to eat haggis.
Oh,
no, I'm going to the bench. I'm going to the bench. That's brilliant. I really wanted to ask because I was obviously there's only so much you could physically ask about Sir Alex Ferguson as in terms of a manager, but I think the more important thing is asking about the human being, because I think people just label him as, because he comes from Govan, he's got the aggressive side behind him and he has that bullish attitude, but he's not always like that. It's just he just shows the authority about who he is as the man, the man himself behind the suit, behind who he is as a person. He's a fantastic human being, and I think it's great because obviously we've got a former United Academy player and like physically with us tonight as well. You can get that deep conversation. I think having like that humour behind it was fantastic. There's a few comments here. Mike's reiterating your point, which is spot on. You can be as talented as you want, but if you're not prepared to work hard and be dedicated, then you'll be left behind. Ronaldo is the example. Spot on. I think that's perfect. Evening Reece, that's from Trevor. Love the jersey. Thank you. I also have King Eric on the back. You've got to. If it wasn't Cantona, swear down, it would have been Dennis Irwin on the back of this, but you had to get Cantona. So there you go. And Evan's just re-asking that question again. It was, who's the toughest player you come up against? I think he's just asking that again. I think.
Yeah, in the academy, it was Mika Richards. If I had to say ever, I don't know.
Would you say Roy Keane in a training match?
Oh yeah, Roy Keane was colossal. Yeah, Roy Keane was unbelievable.
What was he like on you as a, like, obviously the Man United's captain towards a young player? Like, what sort of like attitude and approach did he have to you?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, if you ask other lads, this answer would probably be a lot different. But for me personally, Roy Keane was probably, you know, one of the best in terms of, for me, he was the club captain. Obviously, I mentioned about going through that sort of bad injury. He was the first one who came and visited me in hospital, brought me a copy of his book, reassured me, always sort of, you know, made sure I was okay. When I came back and started back training, he was always sort of asking about me and, you know, checking up on me and stuff like that. But yeah, obviously on the pitch, absolute animal. And sort of the will to win and sort of that sort of winning mentality was just, you know, I've never seen anything like it. But, you know, you'd love to have him on your team and you'd hate to sort of be playing against him, was I always sort of described him. But yeah, no, for me personally, he was, you know, definitely one of the most influential people at the time. Obviously, for me, he was sort of quite harsh on a few of the younger lads because he got wind of things that they shouldn't have been doing. Luckily for me, I always sort of tried to stay on the straight and narrow.
Yeah.
And obviously wanted to try and, you know, do my best and sort of do things the right way. So he was always fine with me. And luckily enough, obviously I ended up sort of, you know, getting back from that injury and doing quite well in the reserves, and then obviously got a nod to sort of play in the cup, which obviously was fantastic for me, obviously making my debut. And, you know, he was somebody who said, you know, you've done well, you've earned that, obviously coming back from a horrific injury, and
yeah,
you know, to get there on merit. He said, you know, with the team and obviously the squad that we had at that time, I think a lot of young players wouldn't have even, you know, been considered because of the amount of talent we had. And obviously in the attacking areas, when you think of the players we had, it was, you know, Van Nistelrooy, Rooney, Solskjaer, you know, and you know, it was so difficult as a young player to try and even get near. But yeah, obviously for me, it was an amazing achievement and something I always obviously, you know, look back on with sort of fond memories.
Absolutely, and I appreciate that response. And Trevor says Keane was from Cork, no wonder he was so good. And Evan saying sorry I came to the show late. I didn't know the question was asked. It's perfectly all right. Gary, I do have a question for you actually. This is a question I actually had earmarked for you. In terms of yourself as a Liverpool fan, who would you say? And this is just a serious question. This isn't like a tongue-in-cheek humor. Obviously, Salah right now is your best player. Gerrard's probably your best Premier League player. But overall, like for you as a fan, what would you say? What would you say? Who would you say is the best player you've seen at your club from your period, like your lifetime as a fan? Who would you honestly say is the best Liverpool player that you've seen?
It's Steven Gerrard.
Hands down.
He carried us for years. he carried us for years. Like, I know Michael Owen has won the Ballon d'Or at the club, like, during my time as a fan and stuff. And as he says, he was on his downfall as well at 21 years of age. But it's Steven Gerrard. He carried us for years. He kept Rafa in his job longer than he should have been there. It was Gerrard. He was just brilliant. He did everything, and I think if it wasn't for Carragher, I don't know if he would have made it to the heights, because Carragher was like that little devil in his ear telling him to do more and more and more, because he was from Liverpool. But yeah, no, Gerrard was the best.
Is there any? Obviously, we look at the players you've had. You've had the likes of Kevin Keegan. You've had Dalglish. You've had Ian Rush. You've had Souness. Horrible pundit, but still, in his time at Liverpool, his success is paramount. And all, like, is there any legend before your time, like, or any team that you would have loved to have watched live? Like, if you'd been around at that time, is there any team that stands out for you?
It's very generic, but like, there's probably two players. Anyone that I've ever talked to, like any of the old boys you ever talked to over in Liverpool, they always tell you about how great Kenny was, King Kenny. But they also talked at the same time about Alan Hansen. Like, the trophies that man has won, like, and he's donated them all to the museum in Liverpool. But Alan Hansen, he just played every game continuously, and he was just a rock at the back. And on the other end, everyone you say, lads, Kenny could do anything. If he was to come in today's game, Lord knows what he would have done. With the smooth pitches, the carpet pitches, and I suppose these players never got injured. Kenny rarely missed a game, and it's so weird. Like, now lads are going down with the smallest of muscle injuries, but that's the way the pace of the game has gone. But it would have been King Kenny for me. Like, it's close between him and Alan Hansen, though.
That's a fair shout, because if I'm right in saying that was the defence that had Phil Thompson as well, centre back beside him. Was that those two?
Yeah.
So I think that's fair. I think the way you've described Dalglish, I think, is how maybe Phil might agree, is how what Man United would be like if George Best played in this era. I think he's that similar mindset where potentially, like, quite possibly Man United's greatest ever player, and obviously Dalglish is recognised as the greatest ever Liverpool player for a reason. So I think you look at that, and I think that's actually a very fair comment to make in terms of what they'd be like. So also the game's different to what they were, but they were very good technical players. So I think that's a fundamental comment that can be made there. And to be fair, Trevor's got a tongue-in-cheek comment, but he's also got a realistic comment as well. Tongue-in-cheek, he thought you were going to say Ronnie Rosenthal. And he's also said Hansen was a better version of Van Dijk, in fairness.
Yeah, no, if that's what I was going to kind of describe him, that he was, I suppose, the 70s and 80s version of Van Dijk, just a rock. Yeah,
I have to admit, like, for a guy from Scotland playing for Liverpool, don't particularly like him, but I don't like him for the Liverpool part, but I'll give him credit, like, he was a solid defender. But we are going to move on, because not only do I want to get your lineup predictions for the weekend, I know Phil's done it with Keane already. We'll get the scoreline predictions, but I wanted to do a combined 11, because it seems to be the thing these days. We may as well have a little bit of banter, but we're going to do a wee combined 11. It'll be, you can stick your comments in the live chat as well. Any you disagree with, you want to make a change to, that's fine. But combined 11 Liverpool Man United players. I think we can already say the goalkeeper has to be David De Gea.
I would have went Alisson.
Oh,
yeah. I actually think that's a really... I mean, if you're going off David De Gea's form right now, I think he's back to his best. And, he's sort of been such a good player for Man United for the amount of time he's been there. It's obviously only a couple of years he's maybe dropped off. So, yeah, I would go for Big Dave in that.
Don't worry, you're not going to get completely outvoted on everything just because you're a Liverpool fan. There will be a bit of fairness, but in this one, you're getting outvoted. What I'm going to do though is, like, I'm not going to do it just in current players because I think that's a bit unfair to, like, say, Varane, who's an absolute rock. I want Varane in this combined team. So I'm doing, like, if they were fully fit, like, I want to do that. So in terms of right backs for you guys, is it like, would you go Wan-Bissaka? Do you go Trent Alexander-Arnold? I may as well start with you, Gary. Like, I may as well on this one.
I'm going to go with Trent. Like, as much as Wan-Bissaka is good at defensively, like, Trent offers so much everywhere else on the field. Like, he can still do a job at the back for you as well. He's forward play completely outweighs anything else that he does.
I'm just liking these comments. They're straight up shutting you down. Any Liverpool players left back on the coach. I would pick 11 United players as I'm biased, but I would pick Klopp as manager. And Evan says, just put in Henderson in defensive midfield, Salah on the right wing, and Virgil van Dijk beside Varane, and be done with it. So basically, 8 United players and 3 Liverpool. I like that. I like that. Phil, you like that?
I like the sound of it, but I actually
you got to be fair.
Gary on the right back. I mean, I actually love Trent Alexander-Arnold. I think what a player he offers, as Gary just touched on there. I think going forward, he's probably one of the best I've seen in world football in terms of what he offers, in terms of the deliveries, the assists, the range of passing, to switch of play. It's I've not really seen anything like that, and obviously I've seen him run games from right back, which is ridiculous. I think obviously Wan-Bissaka, if you could add his sort of 1v1 defending and defensive side of his game to Trent, what a play you would have if you could combine both of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously I'm a more attacking minded player anyway, and I think if I was a striker, who would I want, as a right back who was going to deliver balls and supply me, and obviously, for me, it's just sort of on that basis, really, I'd say Trent.
Yeah, in all fairness, I actually agree with you guys. I think both have been relatively same amount of form, like similarities, but I think in terms of what you realistically want, in all fairness, like Wan-Bissaka, he's a brilliant defender. He deserves the respect for that, but you want that attacking side. When you actually said combine the two together and you like get a brilliant attacking fullback and you get the defensive side, my mind went straight away to like say Irwin and then went to Cafu. It went straight to those two as a combo, like in terms of because they had it both. I was like that just stuck in my mind. Carlos played for the attacking side, not really defensive. He was a brilliant attacker, but defensively he was a little bit suspect. But Irwin was just complete. And what really can I say about Cafu? He's one of the best right backs I ever saw. Your centre back pairing for you both. We're doing fully fit. I am like we just cannot ignore one particular centre back. For you guys, fully fit. What's your centre back pairing?
I'd go with Van Dijk and Varane.
Yeah,
I just think you can't really look past them two for me. I think they've proven over the last how many years that they're probably one of the best two in their position in world football, and I think they'd complement each other quite well. They've both got the attributes that you want to have as a centre half. He's got the physicality, they've got the pace, comfortable on the ball. So yeah, for me, I think them two would be some pairing.
Gary, would you agree on that one? Van Dijk and Varane?
Yeah, 100%. They've done it all. Like, what does Varane have? Does he have 3 or 4 Champions Leagues? Like, they've both won Champions Leagues. They're both league winners. They're superb. Like, and they both had really good. Like, Varane's learned from Sergio Ramos. Like, as much as people like to hate him or love him or whatever, like he's had a very good education at Real Madrid, and like Van Dijk has kind of done it the hard way. He's climbed his way up through the league, so he's a fighter and he's a dogged defender to a certain, but with the grace of anything. So yeah, no, it has to be the only centre back pairing, to be fair.
Yeah, Trevor says Phil Jones and Eric Bailly for me. Maybe if you're playing 5 aside, maybe, but not in professional football. I'm sorry, but as much as I like them both and respect them for many things, to be fair, Eric Bailly doesn't get my team for me because he's got the same birthday as me and he's patched me on Twitter for the past 2 years. So no, he's not getting my side on that one. But left back, I think this one's going to be tricky. I think left backs, because I think throughout the season, I don't know what Gary will agree on this one, but I think Tsimikas, if that's how you pronounce his name. I think he's, for Liverpool's perspective, I actually think he's been better than Robertson. But Robertson's been better than Luke. But at the moment, he's been better than Luke Shaw. Luke Shaw hasn't been the same player since the Euros. For me, in all honesty, I'm probably going to get butchered for this, but I'm putting Tsimikas as left back.
Ooh, that is. I would have picked Robertson. I think Tsimikas he's a better crosser of the ball than Robbo, which is very hard to believe because Robbo really knows how to throw it in there. Mm-hmm. But I think Robbo's overall game is just really good. Like, there's not much between him and Shaw. An on-fire Shaw, it's so close. But as you said yourself, I think the Euros affected him more than he knows. And he's taken the anger out on the field, but not in a good way. He seems to be very emotional at the moment, so I would go with Robbo myself.
It's hard to describe what is going on with Luke Shaw at the minute. I really don't know. I mean, I absolutely adore Luke Shaw to death. I think he's a fantastic defender, but since the Euros, he just hasn't been what I enjoyed watching last year. I couldn't put a word on it. Phil, what would your opinion be on Luke Shaw? And then also, who would you choose at left back?
Yeah, I agree with both your comments there. I think obviously Luke Shaw up until sort of the Euros was probably going to be a shoo-in because I think he was, playing some of the best football that he played in a long, long time. But obviously since he's come back, he hasn't quite hit the heights that he was performing at prior to that. So if we was basing this 11 off right now, I'd probably sort of agree with Gary in terms of Robbo, just the fact that I think he is all round. He's a good defender. He gets forward. He's a good crosser. He gets his fair share of assists, which an on-form Luke Shaw does as well. I just think at this moment in time he's not quite sort of hitting the levels that we know he can. So obviously just based on that, I'd say Robertson just for now.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So right now our back four is we've went De Gea, we've went Trent, Varane, Van Dijk, Robertson. So it's fairly even there in terms of that. United are still dominating just the way we like it. Trevor says Shaw's a better defender and improved going forward immensely. He has. I will agree to that. He's just in that rough patch of form, but hopefully he turns it around. And speaking of patch, he also says Shaw should be called Patches O'Houlihan in dodgeball. He has so many bandages at the moment. True, but bandages are only on temporary. Once they come off, we'll see how they recover. So we'll see how the season progresses for Luke Shaw. I think he'll still go and have a fantastic season. It's just right now he's just caught in a rock and a hard place at the moment. I probably think that's probably the best way to describe it. But we're gonna go ahead. We're not doing this 4-2-3-1 crap. We're gonna do 4-3-3, the system people actually like. So we're gonna do it that way. And we'll come to you first for the defensive midfield position. And I'll come to you first, Phil. Who would you put in that number 6 role? Who's your choice?
For me, I think probably out of the both squads, I think Liverpool probably just edge the sort of central defensive midfield roles with Henderson and Fabinho. But for me, I think I really rate Fabinho. I think he's a fantastic player. I think he's got everything you'd want as a sort of number 6. I think he's distribution, his work rate, he breaks the play up really well. So for me, I think I would go with him. Obviously, McTominay and Fred do a good job for United. They always, put 100% effort in. Yeah. I just think in terms of, if you sort of could pick somebody to play in that role in terms of a combined 11, I think Fabinho's probably just ahead of those. If I'm being honest.
Yeah, I think he's a fantastic midfielder. I think United missed a great opportunity when Mourinho was in charge. We missed a great opportunity to sign him. We should have done. Yeah, they've gone to Liverpool, and you just see what he's done since. He completely transformed them. I see Keane's comment there. I'm going to bring Keane's comment up in a minute, but I also agree with Fabinho. I think he's fantastic. Unanimous for you, Gary, or would you go Henderson?
No, it is Fabinho. What he did last year when we were on that losing streak, I think Klopp all of a sudden realised he's more valuable to me in the midfield than he is at the back. So, and he just completely transformed us when he moved in there. So he's probably one of our most valuable players, if I was honest.
Mm-hmm. And beside him, as the midfield partner, who would you put in that position from both squads? Are you going to, from the range of options you've got Fred, you've got Tommy. We're going to, in all fairness, we have to exclude Van de Beek because he just doesn't get games. The Nemanja Matic is there. You got Thiago, Paul Pogba. Who would you put in that position, or would you put a Liverpool player beside him? And I'll go straight to you on that one, Gary.
I'd probably put Henderson beside him, just for the up and down the field, barking orders, just leadership ability that Henderson has.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my opinion on that, because that's the type of football that I've used to seeing with Klopp. So he would work well with Fabinho beside him.
And for you, Phil, who would you put in that midfield slot?
I'd probably go for Pogba, just because I think with Fabinho there, I think, he would be efficient enough to sort of deal with any problems that you had in terms of defensively, especially with Van Dijk and Varane at the back as well. I think you do need someone who's going to break the lines and put some more creativity in that role. And I think Pogba's somebody who, obviously, when he's on form, he's probably one of the best in the world who can do that. He can beat a man. He can feed balls into the strikers. He can get forward. And obviously, he's such a good player when he's on form. I think he's somebody who I would, definitely put in my team, because I think, he's a world-class player. And obviously, he's proven that sort of more times than he's not.
Yeah, I'm the same. In all fairness, I'm going Pogba. I think I do agree with Keane's comment in terms of Keane's midfield. Another player I'm about to include is, funnily enough, in the same list he's mentioned Fernandes. He's went Fabinho, Henderson, Fernandes. So on the grounds, I think, judging by the sound of the comment, he's going to have the exact same midfield three as Gary by the judge of it. I think Gary may include Fernandes, so maybe the same midfield. Yeah. He has openly said that it's disgusting to include Henderson. Henderson's a good player, but it's just unfortunate he plays for Liverpool. And then obviously Trevor's went Fabinho, but he's went Pogba, Bruno, which is exactly what I've got. I assume you've got the exact same midfield, Phil? Fabinho, Pogba, Bruno?
I think I would go for Bruno, just going off obviously the impact that he's made, and he's sort of made United into a sort of big team again, if you like, because of the way he sort of came in and hit the ground running. His stats and numbers are there for everyone to see. Obviously, sometimes a lot of people say he's wasteful, but I think he's somebody who, he is going to give the ball away a lot of the time, but he's trying to create goals, he's trying to create assists, he's trying to do something different. He doesn't want to play safe passes sideways and backwards. He wants to try and, play that pass and get us going forward and create a goal or whatever. I think obviously you would definitely need a Bruno sort of in your side if you was looking to sort of break a team down who was, solid at the back. So yeah, for me, Bruno's definitely in my team.
I agree. I think people give him like the whole Fernandes comment, which I think is ridiculous. But he scored penalties, but he is an absolute engine. Like, I think people choose to just dismiss that. He's an engine. He gets up and down more effective than any midfielder I've seen in recent years. He's just an effective player. And this comment sums up for me. Created the most big chances in the Champions League game since 2003-04. I'm guessing by that season, the only two players realistically you could say that period was Champions League. I'd say Pavel Nedved or maybe Thierry Henry at the time. I think they two had
Kaká as well.
Kaká probably, yeah. I can't remember who would have been, but mind you, that team also had like Costa and as well, so it could have been that. But I agree, and for you, Gary, I know it's going to be Fernandes, but I'm going to ask you this question before I move on to front three. As an honest rival fan, right? What is your honest opinion of Bruno Fernandes compared to the old Fernandes bollocks that goes around? What is your honest opinion on him?
Sometimes he doesn't turn up against the big teams. I always thought that, but then when you see him play, you realise that Ollie has designed the team to go out in a different way against those teams. He considers United. He plays United as a small team against the big teams, where he should be playing United as they should be. United should be treating every game against the Liverpool as the Man Cities as equals, not as if, okay, you're going to come attack me and I'm going to play counter attack. And Fernandes sometimes can struggle with that system. Going forward, he's brilliant. He just looks forward. He does nothing else, and he's got some ping in him. Like, he can find anyone in a tight spot. So I think he's a very good playmaker. Very good. Like, if Liverpool had him, I think we would be quite untouchable. Like,
it's good hearing that in terms of, like, because you see most fans, they just comment like the same, like they just comment the absolute rubbish. Like, all he does is stat pad. He does all this and all that. But like Lampard stat padded. Like Van Nistelrooy was scoring goals for fun. Like, who cares? Like, who actually cares about a stat pad, or who? Because like that's their job. Like their fundamental job is to score freaking goals or get assists. A midfielder number 10, his job is to score and create. Wow, it's such a bad thing to be called a stat padder. But he's a fantastic player, and I'm like, it's ridiculous seeing all the comments when they wouldn't make the same comments if they were, like you said, if they were in your team. Like, if you'd be in that Liverpool team, I would genuinely be terrified. If Bruno Fernandes went to Liverpool, like, instead of Man United, I would genuinely be terrified. Because I look at the way he's got the players around him, he would be getting fed for fun. Like, so Salah around him, Sadio Mane, even Firmino's movement without the ball, he would just get straight in there and he would be licking his lips all day long. And at United, I look at him, the way he's playing is he wants to be the main man, and you can see it because he will go back to front to back for everything. He has that attitude of, I don't want to lose. He wants United to win. And I'm like, he gets all this unfair stick when he shouldn't get it, and it really is annoying. And it just pains me to see him, like, because he's such a phenomenal player. That's just my perspective on it. But the front three is going to be fun, because there's going to be so many different opinions on this one. Mike's gone Rashford, Salah, Greenwood. That's his front three. Trevor has gone Rashford, Ronaldo, Salah. I'm going to put mine out there right now. I'm going Salah, Cavani, Ronaldo. That's my front three, in all fairness. Like, the only reason I'm not including Rashford at the moment is he's just coming back. Even though he has scored in back-to-back games, he's not there yet. So I'm not going to put him in at the moment. I'm putting Cavani in the middle purely for his pressing work rate. He's an absolute machine. The way, like, his work is similar to Firmino, where they will just press teams differently. It makes an impact for the two wide players to come in and be more effective. And I look at that and I think Cavani's work rate is just outstanding. And then Ronaldo, there's not much you can really say about the greatest player I've ever saw. Like, bar Messi, like, there's realistically nothing you can say about Ronaldo that hasn't been said. And then Salah right now is, quote unquote, carrying Liverpool to unforeseen heights. Like, he's a fantastic player. That's my front three. Salah on the right, Ronaldo left, Cavani through the middle. Phil, I'm going to come to you first on this one. What is your front three in this combined 11?
It is a difficult one, this, because I'm going to leave two Liverpool players out who could easily be in there, really. Mane, what a player he's been. I think he sort of dipped off a little bit last year, but he seems to have obviously found his form again in the last couple of games. And Firmino, for me, somebody who I actually love Firmino. I think he's a fantastic player. I think I love the way he plays. I think he's a defender's nightmare in terms of dropping off into them little pockets and creating space for, the runners in behind. So yeah, just obviously wanted to give them a quick shout out before I bombed them out of my team.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to go for Salah. I'm going to go for Ronaldo down the middle, and I'm going to go for Greenwood. Obviously, based on, I think he started the season unbelievably well. I think he's still learning, but I think he's going to be an exceptional player. Obviously, the likes of Cristiano and Edison Cavani being at the club now, I think will only do him good. He's obviously learning from two world-class players, and obviously he's shown that sort of potential's coming to sort of fruition now with the goals that he's scoring. The more confidence he's got, I think he's obviously, the goal against Leicester epitomises that. He's, not afraid to take a shot now because he can, hit him with left foot and right foot. He scores different types of goals, and in front of goal, in comparison to Rashford, for me, I think he's ice cold, whereas I think Rashford sometimes can be a little bit erratic and maybe, misses some easier chances. So that's what I just went for, obviously, Mason ahead of Marcus, just for that reason. And on current form, obviously, Marcus is only coming back from injury. So, yeah.
Yeah, as we see all the time, like on Twitter, where people call like Mason Greenwood like the star boy. I don't follow the same train. I go in a different way. I coined a little bit of the babyface assassin in a way. I call him the natural assassin because every time he picks the ball up and he shoots, 9 times out of 10 he's scoring. I think he's a phenomenal talent. I think I said when you were on Talk of the Devils with Keane, and you spoke about players and you're like, who could be United's all-time goal scorer after Rooney? I bullishly went Greenwood will be United's all-time goal scorer, but what he'll do first is he will break Rashford's record, whatever that will be. Like I think Rashford will break it, and then Greenwood will wipe it. He will wipe it out completely. I think he'll just tear it apart if he actually stays in United that long, because you never know, he could move on in his career. I hope he doesn't, but that's what I think is going to happen. Honest to God, I hope neither of them leave. Comment here from Ankit, who is a Chelsea fan. He says, unfortunately, Greenwood can't get his combined forward because of Salah, who's been on fire. Yeah, it's fundamental. They're playing the exact same position. As great as Greenwood is, you can flip him on the other side, but in the same position at the moment, Salah is just quote unquote just tearing teams apart, and hopefully on this weekend he gets pocketed. Gary, I'm going to get your front three on this one, and then we're going to go to the entertainment section of score predictions. But what's your front three from this combined 11?
Salah, Mane, and the third one is actually really hard. As much as I love Bobby Firmino, it's very hard to leave out Cristiano Ronaldo going up the middle. He's like, you've talked about how good he is. Like Mane and Salah are they're two phenomenal workhorses, and they offer that threat. No matter if Mane is in a dip, there's still two defenders stuck to him at the same time. And Ronaldo, as we can say, like he's one of the greatest. He's in the top 2 greatest players I've seen football being played. Like so. He had to go in. Greenwood is very close, though. I think you've got some star in your hands there. To be honest, I hope he's hit his peak now, but even that is worrying. But you've got some superstar in your hands there with that fella.
I think he's just a phenomenal talent, but he's a hard worker as well. He's just approached the football. It's refreshing, and that's what I like about him. Just to say, Ankit actually agrees with you. Ankit agrees with your front line on that one. Very interesting lineups there. We've gone through that. We've had a fantastic discussion, and now, as we're about to wrap up the show, I wanted to ask, what's your score predictions for the games on Sunday? And do you have any opening goal scorers? Any mad controversial moments? I can tell you mine, but I want to hear you guys first. So I'm going to start with the man himself, Phil. What is your score prediction for Sunday?
We had a chat about this earlier, me and Keane, and I actually think there's going to be quite a few goals. I think it's going to be quite an open game. Obviously, United is conceding quite a lot of goals at the moment. I think, obviously, with the players that we've got on both teams in terms of going forward, I think there will be quite a few goals. But yeah, I'm going to go for 3-2 to United. I think, obviously, Liverpool are going to be a massive threat. I don't think we'll be able to contain them for 90 minutes, but I just think that obviously being a derby game, obviously form and stuff goes out the window. It's who can channel that emotion and sort of, keep the heads and be clinical in them big moments. And I'm hoping, obviously, after the result the other day, that we can, continue that on and get another 3 points.
Yeah, I agree with that. And Gary, yourself?
I think it'll be 2-1 Liverpool, and I do agree with Phil. I think it'll be a very open game. Neither team can seem to, I suppose, keep a clean sheet to a certain extent at the moment.
Yeah.
I know we kept one against Watford, but new manager or whatever. But I think there will be a controversial moment in the match, whether or not there'll be a goal line or a penalty decision or a red card. I could see something mental just happening, and it'll be the talking point for a week afterwards. Like, it'll be the match deciding one. But I'm going with a 2-1 victory. I do think there'll be goals as well, and I can't see us containing E for 90 minutes either.
Before I give mine, I'm just going to read a few predictions out. Some are very interesting. Ankit's gone for a 3-3 draw, and he's saying Ronaldo gets a brace of penalties. It seems Keane is taking on something to make me smile. Keane's going 2-1 United, Fred winner. And just remember who gets that assist, mate. That's a Lindelof assist. And 2-1, Ankit says Salah to score. Water is wet. Wait to hear my prediction. You're going to really laugh at this one. Mike's going, no, not one of the greatest. Ronaldo is the greatest, so he's challenging you, Phil. Maisie says, mine has to be Rashford, Ronaldo and Salah for front three. Very fair. Trevor says Ronaldo is the greatest. He's changed his way of playing probably 3 times in multiple leagues. Messi stayed the same. Yeah. Sometimes if it doesn't fail you, don't change. Ronaldo is the GOAT. Trevor says a Ronaldo hat-trick, 3-1 to United. See? And Messi took the easy option after Barca. Well, sometimes you can take the easy option sometimes, but actually turn into the best decision you could ever make. You never know. For me, Hart says 3-2, but I actually think it's going to be a 3-2 Man United in my heart. But in this one, I think we're going to draw. I'm going 2-2. I'm going Liverpool to have a penalty ruled off by VAR. I'm going United to get a penalty by VAR, and I'm going Henderson to get sent off. So there you go. I'm going madness. And obviously for the banter, I'm going Fred to score with Lindelof to assist it. Because if that happens, Keane, you're screwed, mate. Because you already said on Talk of the Devils, you're screwed. And Phil can agree with me on that one.
Yeah.
You are screwed. If it happens, I will be buzzing all night long. Gary, Phil, it's been a pleasure speaking to you this evening. Guys that are watching, please hit the like button, please hit the share button and subscribe to the Weekly Armchair Sports Talk. Give us a follow on Twitter as well, at Sports Armchair. Obviously, Phil, you can find them on Talk of the Devils on YouTube. Give them a follow. They're also on Twitter, and subscribe to their channel on YouTube. They're absolutely fantastic. Can you also, guys, shout where you're from elsewhere, like on Twitter? Gary, yourself, I'll come to you in a second. Phil, could you shout yourself on your socials as well, please?
Yeah, obviously Twitter, I think it's Marshy20. So yeah, if you want to give me a follow, that's I'm happy to obviously interact and always happy to talk about football and past experiences. So yeah, obviously look forward to speaking to any of you guys on there.
And yourself, Gary?
It's at Gary Egan 85. I usually just share and talk about all football matters, not even Liverpool, just anything to do with any of the leagues. I love that little bit of controversy and how football has made us a big, massive family.
That's the best bit of football, eh? Controversy creates cash. There's one to the Americans. That's something they can enjoy too, because they always have brilliant liners. And great, I knew this was coming. Oh yes, I forgot, Reece. Dan James to make a surprise appearance at the weekend, but in the crowd, for goodness sake. Everywhere I go, this happens. And Mike, great stream, Reece, Phil, and Gary, excellent entertainment. Well, Mike, on that one, I thank you for that comment. I am glad that we entertained you this evening. That's all we really want to do. Not only have we played football, we love football. It is our life. We live, breathe football. That's all it is, and we just enjoy talking about it. And when we close the stream this evening with this final comment, hashtag Klopp out, hashtag Egan in. On that one, I just want to say from the Weekly Armchair Sports Talk, it's been a pleasure talking to you guys this evening. This is Devil's Advocate. I'm Reece. That's Phil. That's Gary. And we absolutely enjoyed having you guys this evening. Thank you very much. And Maisie, thank you for that comment as well. Guys, have a fantastic weekend. If you're a Liverpool fan, you're getting beat on Sunday, even though I predict a draw. That's a mask. We're winning. Have a good weekend, guys. Stay safe. And as always, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and you never know. There could be more around the corner. Good night.